My name is Meredith, and I've been leading worship since I was probably about 14 years old. I grew up in a little town in the States, in North Carolina. Tiny little town, a tiny church, or like 80 people that went to our church. And my mom helped lead worship on Sundays, and then she also helped with kids ministry. And then my dad was an elder, and he cut the grass every other Saturday because it was like that kind of church. If you help in any capacity, chances are you're helping in multiple capacities. And so my mom would practice during the week, and I would listen to her sing, and I'd just sit in the room with her as she would sing on this little karaoke machine. It had 2 tape decks and 2 mic jacks, and she would just sing to her little tracks, and I'd listen, I'd sing along. And somehow when I was 6, they asked me to sing a song for special music, like for the offering, and I ended up singing a song called I Love You, Lord, which, I think most people who love Jesus know that song. It's such a classic song, and it has such a special place in my heart, just because of what it says. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. Take joy in what you hear. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. And as I've gotten older and been able to sing in different places, I still want that to be true of me. I still want that to be the cry of my heart. God, let it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. And so when I was 12, I started singing backup and playing tambourine for our church youth group, and I loved it. I learned how to sing harmonies, and me and my best friend would do it together, and I'd play that tambourine so hard I'd give myself blisters on my hands, but I was really proud of them because, it's like I got some battle wounds for Jesus. But and then around that time is when I just really started hearing the voice of God. Like, I would get alone in my room and I'd turn on worship music, like older Delirious stuff or Vineyard or original like Hillsong, Darlene Zschech, and I would just seek the Lord, and I'd spend time in personal worship, and God would just meet me there in my room, and I couldn't get enough of the presence of God. And so as a teenager, in my youth group, we started a Saturday night service for area-wide kids they would come from all over, and we'd just have an extended time of worship and then preaching if we got to it, but sometimes we'd just worship all night. And I started playing keys there, and there would be nights when I would literally be underneath the keyboard because the power of God was so strong in the room. And that's when God just began to cultivate inside of me this heart for worship. And it wasn't about standing on a stage or even being a part of a band. It was about pouring out my heart to God and encountering Him in real and tangible ways. And so even as I've gotten to lead worship, different places, I went to Liberty University and studied there and led worship on campus, and then I was on staff at a church in Chicago for about 10 years and signed a record deal about 12 years ago. And I've gotten to travel and go to different churches and sing for different conferences and tours. But I always want the heart of what I do to be, God, let it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. And I've just learned, especially for worship leaders, for people who are in ministry, and I think, well, really it's anything that you kind of aspire to or any dream that you have in your heart. It's so important for us to realize that, God will give us these dreams, the things that He's purposed for our lives, the things that He's called us to, and He'll kind of like put it in front of us, and where we go, yes, that's what I'm going for. This is what I believe that I'm put on earth to do. But the process is so necessary. Like, I'm all about the journey. God is all about the journey of walking it out, like establishing my character and integrity, learning His voice, learning to know and understand and recognize the sound of His voice. And what is it like to worship behind closed doors long before I ever set foot on a platform? Because as a worship leader, I can't take people where I haven't been myself. So I have to spend time in the presence of God, getting to know his heart and singing my own song out to him before I set foot on a stage, because I want to know what God is like, and I want to have this experience with him, and I want to hear his voice, and I want to pour out my praise on him because I know that he's worthy. And then what I do, on a platform, that will be just the overflow of the time that I've spent in private worship. And so I always just say that private worship has to precede public worship. It has to come first. It's not, oh, I love music and I want to be in the band and I want to play some songs. It's, no, I love the presence of God and I want to spend time singing out a new song to him before anybody else ever hears it, just the audience of one, because God delights in our worship. He delights in just hearing us lift up songs, lift up our hearts to him when nobody else is listening. And it's so important for us as people in ministry, as people who are worship leaders, that we become worshipers first. And I'm just so all about that. And I get to teach a lot of different places, and we'll always talk about what is our first love. Is Jesus truly the treasure of our hearts? And if he's not, how do we get back to that place where I'm not just singing songs because I like to sing, but I recognize that worship is the only natural response that I have. It's me responding to the glory of God, to him working in my life and moving in my heart. And all I can do is sing. All I can do is give him my worship in spirit and in truth. And so for anybody listening, I just want to encourage you that God loves your worship. Whether you can sing or not doesn't matter. He loves to hear you sing. He loves the voice of your heart. He just wants to spend time with you. So I would say that there is probably nothing better than becoming a worshiper of God in private, behind closed doors, just getting alone and listening and then singing, responding to who he is. And that's what we're created to do, and that's what I love to do.